Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to explore a topic I've talked about before, but it's worth revisiting, seeing as it is RRSP season. And it's just simply, should you be using the RRSP this year, right now, for your 2024 income? Let's get into it. The RRSP came out a number of decades ago, and for a long time, conventional wisdom was always that you should be using it for your long-term investing. But that changed in 2009 when the TFSA came into existence. And now one of the questions I get a lot is, should I use the RRSP or should I use the TFSA? And there's no hard and fast rule, but I certainly have my opinions on the matter. And in general, my opinion is if your marginal tax rate today is more than 10% greater than your expected average tax rate in retirement, you should absolutely be using the RRSP. So how do you actually find those numbers? That's a great question. There's a great link I'll put in the description below that goes to Ernst & Young's website, where you can put in your income and it'll show you exactly what your marginal tax rate is in any province, and it's mixed between provincial and federal, and you can see that right there. As for the future average tax rate, one way you can get that number is by coming to me for a financial plan. It's always something that I review with my clients. Or you can use the same Ernst & Young's website that I'll link below, and you can see what it would be today if you were spending that much money. Now, there's a asterisk to that, right? Because we can't perfectly predict how much you'll be taking in retirement, how much the tax rates will be, things of that nature. So there's a bit of an asterisk to that, whether you use my financial planning software or whether you use Ernst & Young's website, but you can at least get a good idea. Now, as for the 10% difference that I suggest you should be waiting until you see before using the RRSP, that is because when it comes to the RRSP, my opinion is that you want to create as much advantage for yourself as possible. If your marginal tax rate today is 30% and your anticipated future average tax rate in retirement is 25%, and that gap is only 5%, in my opinion, there are other ways that you can make up some of that 5% advantage, and I'll go into that in a second. Alternatively, if your marginal tax rate today is, let's say, 45%, and you're anticipating a 25% average tax rate in retirement, you're creating 20 cents of value there, or 20 cents of spread. And so for every $1,000 that you're putting into an RRSP, you'll get a $450 refund or reduction in taxation, and you'll pay $250 to get that same $1,000 out. That's creating 20% of advantage. And before you jump into the comments to point out that I'm not factoring in growth and inflation, because growth and inflation will be factored in on both sides, the refund could also be invested in something like a TFSA and grow. It is fair for this analogy to compare 1,000 now to 1,000 in the future. Now, going back to what I was saying before, if there's only about a 5% advantage to your marginal tax rate or your top dollar tax rate today to your average tax rate in the future, I believe there are other ways you can make up that 5% ground. Because if you instead invested that $1,000, to use that same example, into a TFSA, now you're building up an asset that allows you better opportunity to manipulate your tax rates, legally of course, in retirement. The TFSA will never be taxed in today's tax code, so you're building up an asset in that way. And remember, there is no rule saying that you cannot move TFSA money into an RRSP at a later date. I literally did that this week. My wife and I have been building our two separate companies for the last number of years. So for a number of years, it's made more sense for us to put money into the TFSA. It's invested long-term. It's invested the same as our RRSPs. It's long-term focused. It's 100% equity, everything like that. But 2024 happened to be a good year. And so instead of just taking from my checking account and putting into the RRSP, I supplemented that with a transfer from my TFSA to maximize how much I can get back. So especially if you're in the type of career like maybe you're a lawyer or a real estate agent or something like that, where at the beginning you're in a very low income environment, but you know there's a really good opportunity to be in a high income environment later, that's the way to go. Put money away for the long term. That's a great habit, but don't put it in the RRSP until you can maximize what you're getting out of it in terms of the refund. If you happen to find yourself in a situation where your marginal tax rate today is nice and high and you expect it to be more than 10% greater than your average tax rate in the future, but you don't have any cash right now, you can also extract value from the RRSP by using an RRSP loan. I go a lot more in detail in another video I'll link down below. It's point number 4 of the 4 points in that video. But essentially, especially if you're already anticipating a return from your taxes, you can add some RRSP loan, maximize your return, and pay it off with the refund. Again, link in the description down below. If it's time for me to look at your financial plan, review your RRSP versus TFSA plan, there'll be another link in the description down below that'll come directly to me. Until next time, keep planning.